Welcome back to Anxiety Chats. Today we have another anonymous anxiety story.
This time we have a funny story around embarrassing situations due to anxiety.
If you would like to share your own story with us, you can send us your anonymous story through the link in our description.
Or you can come on the podcast to chat with us in person. Go to the description of wherever you are listening to this podcast.
This story happened about 2 years ago. I had the idea I wanted to learn French and also learn about the French culture. My job was paying well, but since the pandemic slowed things down, I decided it was time to take a break and do something different. I bought a one-way ticket to Paris and also enrolled myself in a school I found. I would take classes in the morning and enjoy Paris the rest of the day. When I got there, everything seemed out of a movie and was exactly how I dreamed it. I didn't know what I was looking for other than the culture experience, but I knew that travelling had helped my anxiety. The first Monday I went to class, I noticed I had classmates from other countries, which was cool. I saw there was this very cute guy from England, but I was too shy to talk to him for days. I pretended I didn't know about his existence, but my anxiety would peak every morning when I entered the classroom. My big three problems when it comes to socialising are my shyness, my weirdness, but most of all, my terrible anxiety. All three combined can make me look unfriendly or odd at times, so I usually wait for people to talk to me, which can never happen because of how unapproachable my anxiety can make me look. I was waiting to have a group activity or something, but my teacher always prepared me with other people, so nothing happened. Also, he never made a move, so I assumed he wasn't interested. Week 3, I got my period, and I will just say that I need lots and lots of tampons and pads. One morning, I was terribly late for class, and that morning we had a test, so my anxiety was very high. I entered my class running and bumping into the seats, and I was red from the running. I didn't notice my hair, but later I realised it was all frizzy and messy. I still get anxiety thinking about how embarrassing this day was for me. There were no seats left except for one next to the window. I sit and immediately open my backpack to get my pencil, but my pencil case was stuck at the bottom, and because I was already anxious and desperate to start my exam, I pulled hard and all the tampons and pads I had came out flying in the air. I froze for a second, but the laughs woke me up.
I slowly turned around to see where they had landed, and behind me there was this guy I liked. The laughs increased in sound and volume, and I wanted to cry. He looked at me and my pads and tampons and laughed a little. I wanted to die. My cheeks were on fire from all the blood pumping hard. I immediately grabbed the ones that were visible on his desk. Although I'm sure there were a few that probably landed on the floor, but I simply said sorry and turned around. My teacher broke the laughs with a reminder we were taking a test, and she handed me my exam. I wanted to die that morning. My anxiety didn't let me focus. I did what I could and turned it in. But as I was exiting the building, this guy calls my name, and when I turn around, I see he is coming towards me holding tampons. He says hi and that he was sorry that happened to me. I can't really say it was a romantic moment because I was so embarrassed, although his gesture was nice. I will say that that moment allowed us to introduce each other and become friends. After that horrible day, my anxiety decreased and talking to him was less embarrassing. Because of the circumstances that we met, I thought, well, I officially ran out of weirdness and embarrassing things that I can do in front of this guy. So I let go and started being myself. What an icebreaker, I thought. I opened my true self and we were able to chat normally. I also learned that he had anxiety and that he also is nervous to talk to new people. I thought, who can understand this better than me? We became really good friends and we dated for the rest of my trip. Although it didn't turn into a long distance relationship, we are still friends and we check on each other every now and then. But I will never forget how embarrassing that day was for me. Oh my God.
Oh no. Oh
I get like
god.
secondhand embarrassment just reading this. Oh
100%, like, that
God.
story is great. Like, I think most people that have periods have experienced something really embarrassing around their period at some point, and most of the time to do with somebody that they like.
Yeah. Oh my god, I think this kind of triggered my anxiety when I was in high school because I not to gross people out, but like now I have like very light periods, but before it was like when I was younger it was like much stronger. So I would always
Mm,
get anxiety because my fear was always like getting up to go do something and like having a stain in my skirt, because I had uniform and my
yeah,
uniform was like it wasn't dark, it was actually like a light gray, so you could see anything that was going on, any stain, anything.
yeah.
So I would always like wrap my sweater around me or like around my
Hmm.
waist or something. I always thought that something was going on, It was so
Yep.
embarrassing.
It's so difficult. And
It
I also
sucks.
think like I used to feel that way until I met my partner that I'm with now. And like he's always been so like, women bleed, and that's a fact of life, like most
Yeah.
women anyway. And like there's nothing to be embarrassed about. And if you leak or like, because I was always worried, like, what if I wake up and we're in the same bed and like I've leaked on the bed or something? And I'm 26 and I'm still getting these worries.
Mm.
But he was just like, that's a totally
Yeah.
natural thing to happen. There's nothing to be grossed out by that,
Hmm. Oh,
which is
for
great.
sure. I love that in this story the guy seems kind of understanding, like he's not like an ass about it, like, oh, you got tampons or something, like he was actually nice
Yeah,
about it. And he even handed her the rest, which I would personally like just die inside, like, oh my god.
100%.
But
I would want to just pretend that nobody had seen it.
I love that, she says that, you know, and this is so true. Like for me, like I'm an introvert person sometimes, and socializing with new people can be a little bit odd. Um,
Yeah.
like I'm always thinking about the things I'm gonna say, and I end up doing the worst, like the opposite, or saying things I don't mean, or just being like a
Hmm.
little, I don't know, silly, or but I'm always nervous the
Mm.
first few times that I meet someone, or I go into, I think we were talking about this yesterday too, like going into like a room of people or a party where I don't know
Mm.
anyone, and like I just get so anxious. And it's true what this person
Yeah.
says, like your worst enemies can cross and just combine, you can look weird. Or I've been told once that, one of my best friends told me that when she met me, she didn't like me because I had like what do they call, like bitch resting face, I think. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's
Yeah.
like, well, you seem a little unapproachable. And I was like, well, I was probably nervous because I was
Mm.
like in a room full of new people. So I totally get that.
Exactly. I mean, there's been loads of people that I've met.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm quite extroverted and like uh, stuff like that. So I don't really understand that part. But like, um, I've met people and I have personally probably judged them harshly because I've met people and been like, oh, they weren't very friendly, or like, I don't think they liked me because they were not talking to me at all, or something like that. And like, I have judged people prematurely and too harshly on meeting them for the first time, especially as somebody that suffers from anxiety as well. Like, I noticed like when I spoke to one of my friends who was like, yeah, I don't really smile at people, but it's just the way I am. Like I'm not unfriendly. I'm not thinking bad thoughts. I seem unapproachable because it's just in my nature to be that way, but it doesn't mean that I'm not friendly. And it's like, that's so true. Not everybody reacts the same way. And that really opened my eyes because I think we can all, including myself, judge people on first impressions. And people always say like first impressions count, but when you're meeting for someone for the first time, you don't know where they are. You don't know what stage of life they're in. You don't know how their day's been that day. So you can't judge people by the first time you meet them. And I mean, this story proves that. Like, it's so, so nice that they're still friends now.
Oh, for sure. I 100% what you just said, because sometimes I've made that mistake too of like judging someone based on the first impression, but then I learned, when I had
Mhm.
like feedback come to me and say, yeah, well, when I've met you, you didn't seem that approachable or nice even, and I was like shocked. I was so devastated. I was like, what do you mean? I think one person told me like, you seemed like, what do you call, like those people that always look down on other people, like just because of my expression. I was like, I was
Oh,
probably thinking about what I was doing, like self-conscious about what I was
exactly.
doing or thinking. And that's exactly and that's what the story, like that's how I connected with the story, because the person says like he also didn't seem interested, like he acted like I didn't,
Hmm.
or that's what I got from the story, like, and he didn't like me. That was her conclusion, but at the end she also learned that this
Yeah.
guy also had anxiety. So it's like you really never know what people are thinking or going through. Social anxiety can be really
No,
hard, like for some people, like really really hard, like palm sweating kind
it
of thing,
can, like,
so
and it's makes me really sad. Like, that's why I think, I want, I think I'm like the opposite way in that, like, my friends are like, Emily, you don't need to smile at, like, it's quite weird for you to smile at everyone. Like, walking down the street saying hi to everybody, that's quite weird. That's quite, like, that's not normal. But I think I'm just really
uh
trying to overcompensate for if somebody feels anxious or somebody feels like bad or sad. Like, and it's so silly. Like, and I probably shouldn't take that responsibility on, but like, I think just since knowing, like, I totally judged them prematurely, I'm kind of like the opposite way of like, you really can't judge anyone at any point, really. Like, there's always a reason why somebody's acting a certain way. And yeah, and oh,
mhm.
God bless this person that somebody with social, like listening to this story, like, even if you didn't have social anxiety, it's a pretty embarrassing story.
Yeah.
But for somebody with social anxiety, this could feel genuinely like the end of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think she said it twice, right? The person said it twice. Like, I wanted to die.
Yeah.
Like, having social anxiety and having that moment of like being exposed, like, yeah, period talk is not
Hmm.
comfortable for some people. It's not like, I guess, the most appealing conversation, um, but happen like it also feels like you pull something and your backpack just explodes, and all these things just come out, and on top of that, on top of the guy that you like, so it must have felt like
Yeah.
so horrible. Like, I can't imagine my heart boiling, just like, like get out of the room. I would have left. I think I would have just got up and left.
Yeah. Well, I think even at this age of 26, and like I said, not really suffering that much with social anxiety, I think even now I would find that really embarrassing if I dropped like a pad or something on the floor. And I don't know why, because it's not a secret. Like, it's not a secret that women have periods. Everyone knows.
Hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. I don't know what it is about it. Like, it's not supposed to be a conversation
Mm,
that's like, oh my God, you got a period. Like, don't tell anyone. Like, even men now are, I think a lot of them are comfortable
yeah.
talking about it, even though some people are still like grossed out about it. But, I think it's more like the feeling of being exposed. I don't know. Or like feeling
Yeah.
exposed to the world. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
if it's like keeping a secret, like almost like something
Yeah.
personal. And anxious people already are very reserved. I don't know if you noticed, but or sometimes like some things you don't want to share, or you are waiting for the right moment, like because it's already
Mm,
too stressful to talk about it or to deal with it, so just having that moment where it's an accident and it happens like that and it exposes you like that must have been like really really stressful.
100%. And yeah, I think that's the thing. People all have different reactions to this. And I think some people hear certain stories and they think like, oh, I wouldn't be embarrassed about that. There's nothing to be embarrassed about that. You know what I mean? That's not embarrassing. But it's all about somebody's like own individual thoughts and personalities. I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't understand why I find it really difficult to get on a bus. Like, but I do.
Hmm.
And like, I don't, we don't necessarily need people to fully understand, but we need people to respect that that's how we feel. And I think that, I mean, part of this
Uh-huh.
story is that the reason it was so embarrassing is because it was like period products. And I think a part of that is that we do teach girls like your period is very like is embarrassing and is something that if you leak on your trousers, that's the end of you. Like you're never going to live it down, and that's so
Oh yeah.
embarrassing and it's dirty and all these things, and it's just not that way. And I
Yeah.
think we need to be doing more. Like I don't know about like when you were growing up, but I remember at school we were in primary six, so we were probably like 10 or 11. It's when a lot of girls were starting to get their period and stuff. And a teacher would took us all around the school and showed us all the like sanitary bins, like that we could put our like used period products in. And it was so secret. All the boys were like staring at us. We got back to the classroom and they were all like horrified that we had just gone around the school to look at period bins. And it was just like, there needs to be more chat about that when you're at that age and not make it so secretive, because then we wouldn't be as embarrassed.
Yeah, I like that you said that because yeah, for sure. In my school, I remember like because it was so everything was just like such a taboo. It was like a religious school, so
Mm.
to talk about boys, sex, period, it was like everybody was just like so embarrassed. Um
Mm.
and the first I went to two different high schools. The first high school that I went to was all girls, so I felt more comfortable around them, even though I still felt that embarrassment. Whenever I would have my because I think it happened to me once. I don't remember the details, but my sister reminds me sometimes like the first time that I got my period. I think like I got a leak and like
Oh.
I was so embarrassed that I probably like did my best to erase it from my memory because I have like very vague memories of that.
Mm.
But my sister does remember. She was like she's 2 years younger, so she's like, oh, I remember that. And sometimes she tells me the story and I'm like, that happened to me, like I must have been such in shock that I erased it, like
Mhm.
from my memory. I don't know. But what I did, I think, kept is the anxiety part, like of being seen.
Yeah.
And in high school, it was like in school even, I was like always like I would get up and just walk I don't know, to get a book or whatever, and it was like I have something in my skirt, like that would be my trauma, like, and I would be so embarrassed about it, like even when nothing was happening. And then when I transferred to my other
Yeah.
school that was boys and girls, it like multiplied. I think there was a time where I didn't even go because I had like a heavy flow and I was like, I'm not going to go to school. I'm just not going to deal with it. I'm not going to be the girl that like has a leak in front of all these boys, especially when you're at that age when you like boys and you're starting to have crushes and everything. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, no, no. But it was like very, very strong. And, but then again, I thought, why aren't we normalizing this? Like,
Yeah.
yes, boys don't get it, but at least they should know that it's normal. I'm sure the majority of them have moms, sisters, cousins, and like they should be comfortable to talk about that. Like, why do we have to like have the
100%.
forbidden place where we go to get rid of our sanitary pads, or like don't talk about
Mm.
it. It made me think of a classmate that I had. We're not really friends. We were never really friends, but she was so outspoken and like so out there. Like her personality was just like very extroverted. And like whenever she would
Mm.
get her period, she would come to class. This was in my high school that was like boys and girls, and she would just loudly say, I got my period today, so don't talk to me. Like she would, like, I think in her own way she was determined to make boys uncomfortable and not the girls, and it was really cool to see that.
Mhm.
It was
That
really
is really
nice.
cool, actually. Like, because I think at high school, like looking at that, I'd be like, "What's she doing?" But actually, she's probably embarrassed, and she's probably
Hmm.
like, I'm going to tell everybody I'm on my period before they found out. And then I feel really vulnerable right now because I'm on my period and it's kind of scary. So I'm just going to shout about it in class and then nobody can, find me out. And it's everything kind of comes back to
Hmm.
like vulnerability, I think, at that age. And I remember I
Yeah.
was with my ex at the time and he turned to me one day and said, Emily, what's a fallopian tube? And I found it really funny because I was like, why are you asking me that? But like now thinking back, I'm like, he should have known what that is because we were all taught about stuff like that. Like we were taught about well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not so much, but like we all knew what was happening. And it was like, I think for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
males, it kind of felt like they want to know, they want to understand it. Like they want to, because it's an important part of life.
Yeah.
Like, but they were not allowed to because it would make women appear as these horrible, dirty beings. And it's like that's not how
Mm-hmm.
this should be.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, for sure. I saw a couple of videos on TikTok or Instagram, I think, where men are genuinely curious. So they're like, okay, women out there, I want to learn about where this is located, where, and I'm like, well, that's cool. Like, even though 50% of the comments were like people laughing, you know, the other half was like, okay, well, answering the question. So I thought,
Mhm.
that's actually cool because it may sound funny, but it's nice that men now are more interested and they want to learn and they want to know what it feels like. Um, Even having
Mhm.
cramps, like for some people that can be so bad. Like I learned some people even have to take, a few days from work because it's so painful to have cramps. I used to
Yeah.
have them, but I think it depends for me, but overall it's not terrible. I can't complain. But I have a friend who
Mhm.
needs to put ice and like all kinds of things to make it better, and I'm like, well, that's so
Mhm.
bad, but like that people have to experience that, but that's life, and it was cool
Yeah.
for me to see, like, there was a, I don't know, there was like a viral video going around, like men using these machines to simulate cramps. And
Mhm.
I know it's funny,
I
but
saw
I
that.
thought, it's nice that at least they're like curious and they're willing to like put themselves in the shoes of a woman.
Mhm. Definitely. And everyone, like most
Yeah.
people are here because of periods. Like it's literally a really, really important part of human life. And I think, thinking about
Yeah.
that, like women of any age or people that have their periods of any age, like they can have such debilitating periods and like it being some like, people I've known women that just can't move, that like are really, really not well at all, endometriosis, all these different types of like things that women can have. And the way that the world works is you're not allowed to really, if you said that, oh, I'm taking time off because I'm on my period, people would totally look down on you because they'd be like, well, everyone else manages it. Why are you just not managing it? And I think that's another big important thing. Like I know that there was places, I don't know if it was in Scotland, that were trialing like 3 or 4 days off a month for women that were going through menopause or that were on like had their period, to like kind of try and stop the stigma and for women to just be able to freely say, I'm in a lot of pain. I don't think men would kind of carry on with the level of pain that a period can cause. But maybe that's me being generalizing and
No,
maybe being sexist. But
honestly, I am with you on that. I talked about it with my dad one time because my dad, and I've seen that happen to my boyfriend too. Like, he would get a flu, just a cold, just like a regular cold, and like he would feel like dying, like he wouldn't get up. And I was like, well, what do you feel, like, oh, it's just fever, and it would be the same temperature that I would get or my mom would get, or even
mhm,
less. Or I get the chills and they just feel like they're dying, like my boyfriend's like, I hope you understand, like he just makes a whole drama around the fact that he has the flu. And I'm like, and then my mom, she's like working, cleaning, doing all kinds of things. And like, I can be sick. Like, unless I'm terribly sick, then I just go on with my day. And
yeah,
so I told my dad, imagine if you actually had to go through birth, or, the C-section, when you get, you have to have surgery, you can get up,
mhm,
or even worse, endometriosis is a big thing, and a lot of people just like
mhm,
get like this painful cramps, and we have to go to work like that if we're feeling sick. Nothing, like, at least
yeah,
in Peru, they don't care, like, oh, you have your period, so what,
yeah,
and we have to
yeah.
go with our days, just feeling pain, constant pain. And he thought about it, he's like, yeah, now that I think about it, I don't think I could do it. Like just women's tolerance for pain is like much higher, and because we've normalized it, we normalized pain. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm just feeling cramps, it's normal to have pain, um
Yeah.
to give birth, people, women have to push, and it's like so painful for them, but they do it because they have to, it's they have to give birth, and I had one, I
Mhm.
think it was, I was in high school when a friend told me, oh, if men had to do it, they would do it. And I'm like, I don't know about that, because every time, because
Mhm.
I had already seen my dad, get destroyed every time he would get a flu, I was like, I don't know, maybe some, but I don't know, men can be, very sensitive to pain, and like just like they become big babies when they get sick from simple things. So I don't know if you would be able to
Mhm.
do it, but maybe, who knows?
For sure. And like it's funny, like men also have to have this bravado of being really strong and like not like if I think in a group of men, if a man had the flu, then he'd try and act really tough. But then when he's at home, he's able to kind of
Hmm.
soften and like let whatever is happening happen. And I think like, the whole this whole thing goes both ways. And, I think we've talked about this before on the podcast of, women and men can both suffer from anxiety and do suffer from anxiety, but women actually, the statistics are women are much more likely to have anxiety and have severe anxiety
No,
disorders. And I think,
no, for
everything we've
sure.
discussed today is kind of like, no wonder. No wonder we're more likely to have anxiety disorders when we're being forced to, go to work when we're in pain. We're being, when women have babies, they probably don't get as much time off as they need to. And if they do decide to take time off, they might not get the money that they need to survive with their new baby. Like, no wonder women have such anxieties.
No,
And also, we've
yeah,
spoken, us two, on this podcast and off the podcast about our worries about having babies. And so we're not even getting pregnant right now. We're not even trying to conceive right now. And we're already anxious about it. So it's like
yeah.
the world is a breeding ground for anxiety for women.
It's like, we have a list of things to be anxious about, and one of them, it's up there, is about our body, anything that has to do with our body, whether
Yeah.
it's our period, our ability to conceive, are we gonna have babies or not, breast cancer, ovarian cancer. It's like all kinds of things that, are inevitable to, you can't just ignore them, and from day one is, and think about it, boys at 11 or 10, when girls are starting to get their periods, boys are what, just getting wet dreams or whatever, but they just get up, get dressed, eat, play. They don't really worry about anything really, but girls as young as 10, at least that's how old I think, how early, you start getting your period. You're already concerned about your body. You're already thinking like what's going to
Mhm.
happen. You're already stressed about it, like I remember being anxious about it when I was younger. And you kind of start developing that, like, oh, first is your period, then you go into high school. Oh, you're having
Mhm.
sex, careful, you're gonna get pregnant. So you add that to,
Mhm.
to the problem. If you develop some type of body image issues, that add that to the list, um just like anything
Things like
around women, it's like can be stressful.
even yesterday, I was walking home by myself, and to be fair, it was very late at night, but I was walking pretty much two streets. And I ran home with 999 on my speed dial because that's what you do. And I live in a pretty safe neighborhood. Like when you go to the shops around here, you bump into everyone you know. It's like a really kind of nice community.
Yeah,
But I was still like, anything can happen to me right now because I'm a woman. And so I will have
anything can
999,
happen.
the
Yep.
emergency number, called into my phone and my finger over the call button and just running because I don't know, like it's just terrifying to be out in the dark. And I've spoken to my male friends about this and my boyfriend and stuff, and they're like, we're not scared walking at night. And that blows my mind because
Yeah,
I've never not been scared walking
they
on my
could
own
go
at
for
night.
runs at night.
Mhm.
Agree. Agree. There's a video about it. I wish I could find it and send it to you, but it's like the day in the life of a man and a woman. And it's like your standard man, regular man, and standard woman. And like they wake up, he gets up, like both get up, right? And from the very first like thought, she's already thinking like, what am I gonna wear? I don't want to do, like, thinking about her appearance, for example,
Mhm.
right? He just
Mhm.
goes to the bathroom, pees, brushes his teeth, gets dressed, and his mind is just like blank, just thinking basic
Mhm.
things. Oh, I got this type of meeting. I have this type of whatever thing to do at work, right? And the woman is like thinking like, is this skirt good enough for work? Are they gonna judge me in this blouse? Are these high heels gonna
Mhm.
hurt the rest of the day? Like she's thinking about all that, right? It's not even 7 a.m. And then they both have breakfast, and before he gets out, he just goes and grabs his key. But she actually checks the house, locks everything, and then she, like, in her mind she's thinking, at what time I'm gonna come back? Is it gonna be late?
Mhm.
You know I think grabs like a pepper spray, and like she's thinking all these things about her safety. It's like
Mhm.
insane. And by the time she gets to work,
Yeah.
and he gets to work, like she had already so many thoughts in her head about everything that can happen to her. And he's already he's I think, I don't know how many thoughts in, but everything's around like, oh, I have basketball tonight, I have dinner, like just things that are
Mhm.
random. But the level of
Mhm.
concern for her is like much higher. And like if they go throughout their days,
Sure.
it's the same thing. So I'm like, our minds are so busy constantly, even when we're coming home
Mhm.
from work or whatever we did. Even going out is not fun sometimes, because I thought about it, like if I get invited to a party, I'm like, "Ugh, okay, I'm gonna come back at what time? I need to arrange a pickup. I'm not gonna walk from the big avenue to my house. Something can happen." Like I arrange
Mhm.
everything so that I can come home safe. Like all those steps that
Yeah.
my friends don't think about. They just like, oh, let's head out. Keys, wallet, that's it. Phone. But it's like a
Yeah.
series of process for women. So we're constantly busy thinking about everything. So no wonder women develop lots of anxiety. Like we are anxious people
Yeah.
in general, even the people that are not
Mhm.
chronically anxious or haven't been diagnosed with anxiety, I
Yeah.
think they still experience a level of anxiety. It's just not as bad as it is
Yeah.
for us, for example. So yeah.
Definitely. And sometimes it's difficult having these conversations because some men react by saying things like, but not all men are like that. Like, you're being sexist because I'm a nice guy and I would never hurt a woman. And so when that reaction happens from a man, it makes it harder to talk about because we right now are not saying that all men are like this. In fact, it's a tiny percentage of men that would actually, you know, I think that would do something extremely violent towards the women walking home. But we don't know.
Hmm.
You can't see the difference. When you see a man, you can't see the difference between somebody that would hurt you and somebody that wouldn't hurt you. And that's the difference. Women have to be
Hmm.
cautious of every single man they see. And
Yeah.
this isn't a, the only thing that men can do, I think, is, I've been walking home by myself in the dark and a man has crossed the road so that he's not crossing me, or he will walk like to the other side of the pavement so that he gives me more space, or he will look down and look the other way so that do you know what I mean? There's things that men do sometimes that make me feel less anxious, and it's a really, really amazing thing. And my dad always says that when he sees a young woman walking home by herself, he will always, if he's on the same side of the road as her, he will cross to the other side of the road while he's walking past there because he doesn't want to make her feel uncomfortable. He wants her to know you're safe, nothing's going to happen. And that's, I think, the
Yeah.
kind of support that men can give women in these situations, and not always be defensive and say, but it's not me. We're not saying it's you, but we're saying it causes anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, it's true. I like that. It's so nice to see men that are more conscious about it, and they know that their
Yeah.
presence can be intimidating or even scary, just because of how often women get attacked, or how anxious we are around our safety.
Hmm.
I mean, look, everything that is happening, just this year to women. So it's
Yeah.
so nice when they just like be they are empathetic, like in the story, this guy
Yeah.
comes out and just hands her tampons, and it's like no big deal, and it's like it's so
Yeah.
refreshing, just because I would have, I could, I can think of a few classmates, like friends, or even college friends, that are male, that would have like laughed about it or grabbed it and make a joke out of it, or like open it
Mm.
and just like start throwing, be immature about it and just make women feel more uncomfortable, but it's nice that
Yeah.
he picked it up, and he brought it to her. Like that was a nice thing
Yeah.
to see, and like him, there are many many more men that are like being more sensitive and empathetic towards women, which is so nice, honestly, and it makes them more appealing. um
Of
I think an
course.
empathetic man looks immediately more attractive, even, or more interesting to talk to, than a man who's like acting, all, I don't know, cynical or judgmental,
For sure. And like, you know, there's also the thing of men feeling like hopefully now they can talk more about their emotions and can be more open generally, because I think that then creates the space for them to be able to be empathetic towards women and to understand that even if they're not a bad guy and even if they would never hurt a woman, we still have every right to be cautious of them. And you know that takes
Hmm.
men being able to
Yeah.
be in touch with their emotion, which again is another problem in our society. It's not, there's so many issues around kind of this subject. And I'm so glad that we've talked
Yeah.
about this actually, because this is a big, big, big part of, anxiety chats is all about trying to, talk about anxiety mainly towards women. Like we are women that have suffered with anxiety, and that's who we want to
Yeah.
reach. We want to talk to these people.
Yeah, for sure. I love, and if you think about it, every single problem that we're trying to battle against is causes anxiety for us. It's like a big trigger for people. So it's like inevitable to think that we're just going to talk about feelings, but those feelings are not going to be about all these social issues that are happening, that
Hmm.
we're conversations that we're starting to have, like that's exactly, these
Yeah.
conversations are exactly the majority of the triggers for our anxiety, for our mental health,
Hmm.
so everything is kind of like connected. um so yeah, I think it's
Absolutely.
inevitable. Like the other day we were talking about um anxiety in the LGBTQ community, and it's like it's inevitable to not include this community because they also are experiencing their own issues, and guess what, all of that causes anxiety, it's like, and
Mm.
even there are people out there that probably are walking with their chronic anxiety, but they haven't been diagnosed, because even, to get
Hmm.
access to healthcare, it's expensive, and they're just trying
Yeah.
going for the more holistic route, which is not bad. But imagine how many people are not diagnosed, but they have actually anxiety, they have all these issues, and they don't know how to control them.
100%. And yeah, like you said, it's all of these things that we're talking about, they are related to anxiety. And like we said the last time as well, when somebody says just anxiety, that's not a thing in my mind. Like anxiety can be extremely life
No.
altering. It can like damage jobs, it can damage your health, it can damage so many things. And that's not to try and scare anybody. That's to just
Oh
say,
yeah.
anxiety is a serious topic. We're not talking about this, for something to talk about. We're talking about this because we have both experienced really severe anxiety that has affected our
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah. It's like you're in constant stress, like in constant,
Hmm.
you're constantly worrying, and it's like, and people,
Hmm.
I've had people tell me like, oh, but I worry too, and I'm like, yes, but imagine if it's like all the time, or like to the point
Yeah.
where it causes you to have like physical pain, or like panic
Yeah.
attacks, and like that those panic attacks
Hmm.
where like the desperation is so bad that you cannot imagine seeing tomorrow, like the world's gonna end right now,
Yeah.
that feeling.
Yeah.
And like people try to imagine it, but then they're like, some people are like, well, yeah, I really can't imagine that, but it must suck. And just acknowledging that or being empathetic
Yeah.
towards people that are anxious is like, it's already a big plus. Like, we don't want you to tell us
Exactly.
what to do. It's just like acknowledge and understand that I need time, like give me a moment.
Exactly. That's all we can ask from people.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you're listening to this and you're somebody that doesn't have as much anxiety, but you're listening on behalf of somebody that you love that has anxiety, I think you're absolutely class and amazing. And
Yeah.
yeah, thank you very much for listening to us today talk about this subject. I know it's quite a tricky one that we covered today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I think this story had so many layers, social anxiety, anxiety around her period, just everything connected, really. So it was nice to
Hmm.
read this story.
It was.
It was
Thank
so
you to
nice.
whoever sent this in. It was really great. And thank you for
Yeah.
listening. And we will see you next time. Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.
Bye bye.